Hello. Today I'm going to do an Ausable Wulff, which hails from my neck of the woods. I'm from Plattsburgh, New York, and this fly was designed by Fran Betters of Wilmington, New York, about, I think, 40 miles away or so from Plattsburgh. And surprisingly enough, even though I was a serious fly tyer growing up and revered Fran Betters flies, I never met him until I was well out of high school, years later. I did write him a letter at one point, uh, I think shortly after graduation. And he wrote me a really nice written letter back, which for me at that point in time was wonderful. Wishing me the best of luck on my fly tying career. And of course, a fly tying career of any kind was the furthest thing from my mind back then. But I love to tie, and I still do. And I've got something of a career now, which is bizarre. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. This is being one of the wolf flies and being a hairwing fly is not my area of expertise by any stretch. But I've been watching a lot of Alan Gretchen Beatty, and I've been watching their YouTube stuff and stuff they do online live, and they are the true masters of this form. And I'm in the future. I'm probably not going to do a lot of wolves or hairwing stuff because they do it so much better than I do. But I've learned a few things, and I'll pass those along as we go with the Ausable Wulff. This hook is a Daiichi 1280, and the thread I'm using today is something called Superfly. I think I bought this at an, not sure where I bought this to be honest, but it's fluorescent orange, and that's what Fran used throughout on his fly. Now, on a lot of wolves, I know the beaties, um, they use white thread underneath, and that way, when they bundle the wings later with it, um, it doesn't show as much. But Fran just used the fluorescent orange, and I started a little ways behind the eye here, and I've gone just about halfway down the shank of the hook. And now I'm going to go halfway back just on the thread covered area. Just to about there. And that will put me at about the 30% mark on the hook, which is where I like to be for my wings. And I'm going to tie the wings in first. Now, Alan Gretchen Beatty and Fran Betters both tied the tail in first, and then the wing material. This is calf tail, or kip tail as it's also called, and I'm going to take a pretty good amount from high up on the tail. The stuff down lower is not as good for wings. And I'm going to take about that much. We're going to be getting rid of a lot of this. I've got this bundle here right now, but once I strip a lot of the fibers that I don't want out, and I'll do that over a wastebasket here, it's going to get much less dense. I'm going to stack this in a medium stacker, and you'll hear me whacking it on the table here. Alan Gretchen always talk about taking it out of the stacker in the direction that you want to use it. And this is something I've never done my entire life. I'm sorry to report, I've always taken it out the same way, and it's not the best way to do it, certainly. And if I look at this, I really didn't get it stacked very well, so I'm gonna do it again. My family loves this when I stack hair. Now I'm going to grab the very tips and strip more stuff out. That should work. And I want these wings to be about shank length. I'm going to go with this. This looks good to me. And I want to take this back to just short of where the thread ends. In other words, just short of halfway. Cut it. Take a couple more turns. So our wings are mounted. Next thing I'm going to take out is this woodchuck fur patch. It's going to make up the tail, and Fran Betters loved woodchuck because of its floatability and its mottled look. He was a big fan. He even wrote a poem about the woodchuck. Once again, I'm going to take a lot of this, because once I strip out all this garbage, that's just going to leave mostly guard hairs and not much else. So it dwindles down in size a great deal. Now this fly is a number 12, and I am going to stack these guard hairs. I don't know that Fran Betters stacked his stuff. I don't think he did. He tied a lot of flies. He tied 150 flies every day. Again, I want this tail to be rather short. So I've measured it. I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to cut it so that it will butt up against this. I'm going to tie in the tail now, and I want to overlap the thread wraps that hold the wing in place just a little bit. And I'm starting out with some incredibly firm wraps, but as I go back, I'm lightening these up. Very little tension as I go back, because I don't want the tail to roll, number one. Number two, I don't want the tail to spread out a lot. I want to make the tail fairly as compact as I can get it. It's a robust tail. Now I'm going to dub with Australian possum dyed rusty brown. And I want to dub as finely as possible. Now on Fran's flies, his size 18s and 20s, and he did them that small, you could actually see the thread showing through. He would dub that finely. But on his big flies, like 12s and 14s and 10s, and he tied these as big as 6s, he used very chunky dubbing and didn't spend a lot of time. Fran didn't do a lot of niceties. I don't think he stacked materials. He tied fishing flies. Now his Catskill flies back in the day were exquisite. I'm telling you, they blew my mind when I first saw them. I'll never forget the first time I laid eyes on some of his flies. They were just fantastic, and they fished even better. I mean, you could get a season out of one of his Quill Gordons. I mean, just amazing. And it's a shame he didn't keep up with those. After a while, he had invented so much stuff, he just pretty much tied what he had invented, and they were easier ties. Okay, I've got this dubbing wrapped, and I'm not in love with it. I'm going to back off a little bit here. Try again. This stuff is, any fur dubbing can be difficult. It gets clumpy and chunky, and it's hard to get a smooth taper. It's still not great. I think I'm going to try one more time. You just have to do the best you can. I want this robust and chunky, so it's not going to be perfect. If this was a size 16 light Cahill, I'd be dying. I'd be tying in that fur very fine. We'll go with this. It's all right. Next, I'm going to tie in a couple of hackles, a brown and a grizzly. And Fran loved the Adams, and he purposely patterned this after the Adams. I think it's funny. He copied the Adams hackle with this, and Couchy and Nastasi copied his haystack series with their comparadons. Everybody influences everybody in fly tying. And don't ever be ashamed of your influences. Very few flies come out of whole cloth. Everything evolves. And nothing is a true perfect invention. There's a couple of exceptions. I've always thought Hans Velleman's CDC and elk was remarkable. I've tied these in so that their concave sides are together with with this brown hackle to the rear, and you can see the flues of the hackle, or the strands, are going to angle forward when I wind it. The Grizzly is going to angle back just slightly. There's some curvature to these whiting saddle hackles. Yeah, I want the rearmost hackle to face forward, to cup forward, and the foremost, or the front hackle, to cup to the rear in order to make the entire bundle of hackle compact. I I don't want fibers that go too much backwards from the rear or forwards from the front when I'm done. I want this hackle to be dense and compact. I'm posting up the wings. Try to keep the front of the thorax, the part in front of the wings, try to keep that as level as possible. You'll see I'm not just taking turns in front of the wings here. I'm going back and forth because I want this front part to be level. Otherwise, I get too much of a slope and it's difficult. It's difficult to wind the hackle later. I'm going to separate these into two bundles as even as I can get them to make my two wings. 3 turns front to back up the near wing while I hold it in place, and then 1 turn around the whole thing. That kind of locks it all in. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the far wing. This is where having a thumbnail can help. Going up the far wing with turns back to front now. And then I'm going to post them up again. This is one fly, a style of fly actually, that I don't try to be too elegant with. You need a lot of turns if you want to make this at all workable. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bundle these wings, and also while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull them up more upright. They're pretty spent right now. I'll show you how I do that. I'll go clockwise, looking from the top, around the far wing. A lot of times I'll hold this up in place like this. And then I'll take a diagonal turn across the top like this and behind the near wings. And then I'm going to bundle them with counterclockwise turns. But I'm putting a little pressure right now, which drags that far wing up into place where I want it. I'm going to do the same thing here, only backwards, because my thread's reversed at this point with the near wing. And then I'll go diagonally across and behind the far wing. And you can see they're much more upright now and closer together. And I always primp the wings. That's a rule. In fact, I do a lot of primping anyway. Way too much. If I was a professional fly tyer, I'd be dead from starvation. Now these flues are facing forward, so I'm going to butt this right up against the wings, the backs of the wings. Then I'm going to leave a little bit of space in front of the wings for the other hackle. And I'm going to butt it, since its flues are facing the opposite direction, up against the front of the wings later. I've carefully thought this out, and as usual, may have overthought it. Get one more turn in here. One thing I I notice about Al and Gretchen, I'm not going to say they crowd the eye, but they take their hackles right up to the eye. And their hackles are very dense. They do something that I am not able to successfully do. They actually will take, with one of the hackles, they'll take a turn in front of the wings, and then a turn behind the wings, and then a turn back in front. Gretchen can do that. I don't know how she pulls that off, but she makes it work. I can't do that. We all have limitations. All right, now this I want to go right in front of the brown. And again, I'm going to trap this hackle with a turn and then take one more. So it's got two turns holding it. Now here's an Al and Gretchen trick right here. You hold, and I didn't quite get this. You want to hold all the fibers back, or as many as you can, and then just go back towards the hackle bunch. And that makes this hackle pretty much bulletproof. You're not going to pull this out. And then take a whip finish forward and you're done. Only thing you need to do now is trim these hackle stems. Just open your scissors a little bit, hold the stems under tension, and push backwards. And I'm having a lot of trouble with my depth perception these days, apparently. And I'm trying to feel for these hackles. There we go. And there'll be a stray maybe or two. Work with the tweezers and try to get them. I'm really having trouble getting this. I mean, I'm sure this is big on your screen, but what I'm seeing is pretty small, and for some reason I just can't grab it. I'm trying a different pair of tweezers. Got it. And some of these that look like strays are actually legit hackles fibers, just sticking out a little bit. And there is the Ausable Wulff. And I'll show you another one here that I like a little better than this. But this is, I'd fish this in a heartbeat, that's for sure.